All right, let's talk to Alex Anthopoulos, President and GM of the Braves, as he joins us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Alex, congratulations, and welcome to the program. Talk about how it all led to Friday night, this signing and bringing back Marcell Ozuna.
Yeah, it came together pretty fast, like I talked about on Saturday morning. We had kept in touch with his agent, but things didn't get serious until, I guess, Thursday. And, by Thursday night, we were basically getting it wrapped up. And then obviously Marcell needed to fly into Atlanta on Friday to do all of his exams and so on. And I think the thought was we were going to announce it on Saturday, but then it started to leak. And we just decided to go ahead and do it on a Friday night and ruin everyone's Friday night in terms of conference calls and all that kind of stuff.
I will raise my hand, and I thought the 4 years could have been problematic. You absolutely stated that not only was it not a problem, this was the year amount that you wanted, correct?
Yeah, I think for us, I mentioned this, he reminds me a lot of Edwin Encarnacion, who we had in Toronto. Was a really good bat, great person, great in the clubhouse. And I felt like ages 30 to 33 for Marcell were good. I think having the option on his age 34 season, I think that's a really good spot. I like the fact that it ties in with the other core players that we have. And we have right now Soroka and Fried under control for the next 4 years. Obviously, guys like Ian Anderson even longer than that. Acuna Albies even longer than that. So it's just nice to have someone like that, a core piece like that, tight end, good ages. And he wanted stability as well. So this wasn't, something they were sitting on and off early in the winter, and we were grinding, and we were at 2 years, then we moved to 3, then we moved to 4. I had seen different reports about that kind of stuff. And no, 4 years was the right amount for us. Those were the years that we wanted. And it's just about getting it at the price that made sense for us.
Was there ever any concern about there not being a DH in the National League this year and having to play him in left field?
No, I mean, it's something that you weigh at the end of the day. You're trying to figure out your rosters. There's going to be DH. It's one extra spot, right? So you're trying to figure out as much from a payroll standpoint. And if we have a DH, then you need another position player that we don't really have right now. So in terms of Marcell playing left, we signed him last year with the understanding that he would play left. We happen to have a Gold Glove caliber outfielder in Adam Duvall that just our club was stronger putting Duvall in left and having Marcell DH. And he had a couple games in right field that were, they weren't strong for him defensively. I thought in left field he did a solid job. I know some of the defensive metrics on him are pretty solid in left field. The arm strength, he hurt his shoulder a few years ago, so it's not what it was in the past. But he does have pretty good speed. And we think he could be very solid out there in left field. And obviously then you factor in what he does at the plate. I don't think it's fair to expect him to repeat this over the course of 6 months. But we do expect him to be an elite bat, a middle-of-the-order bat, and someone that's going to do well for quite a long period of time.
I don't know what market value is anymore, but first blush, and we'll talk about the structure of the contract and how that might help you guys a little bit. But this is a below-market value deal. Now, again, you get what you get. It's what people believe you're worth. But it does feel like in the wake of, at times, we try to figure out, okay, was that the number everybody thought about? This one seems to be below it. And anytime you can get a guy who had the year he had last year, and as you said, projections, and you guys were right about him. We talked during the offseason when you signed him. There were projections that you thought this is the type of player he could be, plus some intangibles like base running. Are you allowed as a general manager to say that you believe this is a below-market value?
Just like you said, I think the best way to look at it is, and that's why we spend so much time keeping things quiet, right? And look, that's being a fan. So I talk about this a lot. I follow the other teams in Atlanta. Big Hawks fan, Atlanta Falcons fan. I have opinions on things. And obviously people will debate those things. But, when people have an idea of what you're working on, who you're talking about extending or trading for, what you should be giving up, that just, I call it noise. It just makes it more complicated, more opinions. It can slow down the process and make the process more complicated overall. So, the one thing with free agency, it is free agency. It's a free market. It's that winner. And things change from year to year. So it depends who has needs, what years guys have spots and openings and what the market does look like. It's not salary arbitration that you base it on the past. So as much as we might look to previous deals and previous free agents, which you still do, you do have to be current in the market that winter. And that's why it's tough to project sometimes, hey, we're going to go after so-and-so a year from now or 2 years from now. Things change fast. If you had told me 2 years ago Marcell Ozuna would be on the Braves, I would have said no way. He'd just been traded to the Cardinals and had a great year with Miami and so on. So you have to just evaluate it at each time, but obviously we're making decisions for the long term.
Alex Anthopoulos, President and GM of the Braves, with us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. I don't know if you can answer this question, but I'll ask it nevertheless. We talk about it all the time. Your dealings with players, until they're signed, nothing ever seems to leak out. What is your secret sauce? How do you get that done? How do you keep everything quiet?
Yeah, it's important to us. It's we pride ourselves on it, and not as an ego thing. I just think it's critically important to get things done. Again, I've seen deals get derailed, whether they're signings, whether they're trades, because things leak. I've seen clubs run interference. You read that someone in your division is going after a certain player. That might make you look twice if you didn't consider that player. I mean, if you're doing your job, you should be looking at all the players individually anyways. But sometimes you're reading about so-and-so's on this guy, that guy. It just makes you look twice, maybe look a little harder. Maybe you run interference, and you start thinking maybe we should get involved and so on. So it's to everyone's benefit, at least from a club standpoint, to keep it as quiet as we can. I think all of our employees, they know and they understand that we do keep it quiet. We pride ourselves on keeping it quiet. Since I've been working in baseball as a GM, whether it was Toronto or here, we've had success doing it. So I've never had anybody really break policy that way. We do keep it pretty small in terms of a circle of people that know what's going on. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that say, I'm someone's Alex's friend or this guy talking to this guy. It's probably not true because I keep it very quiet across the board. There's a very, very small group of individuals that know exactly what's going on at all times. Just it's more of a need to know, and I pull in the individuals that need to know if it impacts their respective areas.
The structure of the contract. So if we just look at it, we go $64 million for 4 years, $16 million a deal, $16 million a year. Boom, that's what it is. But it really isn't that sometimes, and it seems to be not the case here as well. Correct?
Yeah, we backloaded it. I mean, look, I don't love backloading overall because ultimately you're using future years to subsidize the current year. And again, I know everyone talks about going all in or, we need to make a push. And, I'm not an all in guy. And I mean that because I just don't believe that it's 1 year and then everything ends up falling apart and you rebuild and you go scorched earth. And I think the best way to win a World Series is to give yourself as many chances as you can to win a World Series. And to do that, you need to worry about getting in the playoffs year in and year out. And I've said this before, the Braves were elite for a long period of time. They won one World Series. I can guarantee you, actually, I know for a fact, people that were with those clubs, they would not tell you that the 1995 club was the best talent that they had. They had a great team. They were a World Series caliber team that won, but they had other teams that were equally as good, if not stronger in their minds, that didn't win the World Series. So things happen from year to year. I thought 2019 was a fantastic club for us, and we got bounced in the first round against the Cardinals. I think people were not as optimistic about us going into last year. I don't think too many people expected us to beat the Reds or certainly get to the NLCS with the rotation and so on, and we got deep into the playoffs. So, things happen, guys get hurt, things change. We want to build a club that we get to the postseason every single year. Now, you will push and stretch at certain times, but we're still mindful always on the long term as well.
The idea that you know him, he knows you, I don't know how much that's worth financially, but there is something to that. Is there not? Not only the player wanted to be here, he certainly expressed that, but there is an unknown. You can do all the background checks you want, but how's he going to fit in? This is a bona fide guy you want in a clubhouse, and I also think there's a reason. Sometimes the veteran thing is overplayed, but I think you have a group where this guy not only fits in, but he might actually help guys along the way as well, correct?
Yes, and like as a young GM, I think it's because of lack of playing career and so on. I don't want to say it was fantasy baseball, but you're putting together rosters, you're putting together talent. You can look at the numbers and the tools, scouting-wise and so on, but it was more about collecting talent for me my first 4 or 5 years as a GM rather than putting a team together. And I know that sounds like a pretty simple way to put it, but I do think it's more art than science in terms of putting a team together. You can collect, players and talent all day. But there's a lot of times where teams won't perform and they won't win. And I experienced that. I'd bang my head up against the wall and we weren't winning and we had really talented clubs. And then finally, when I said, I'm just going to give this a shot one time, one off season, I'm going to stay committed to it. I'm going to bring in a certain type of guy, certain type of character. Of course, they need talent, right? No doubt about it. But talent with a certain type of makeup. And, whether it's just circumstance or selection bias, but ever since I started approaching things that way as a GM, I've been part of clubs that have won the AL East, won the NL East. We've made the playoffs each year. So I'm too worried to go back to what I used to do before. So I put a real premium on it, real importance for me. And, it's something that I spend a lot of time, and you feel it as a GM. You walk down into the room, to the clubhouse, you watch the players interact and so on. I think it's a real thing. I've seen players make other players around them a lot better as well, and that stuff doesn't show up in the box score. So it's been successful for me. I'm going to continue to live by that and continue to put high emphasis on it.
Can I ask, I don't know if there's a name or two specifically, but you have to figure out who you're going to trust to get that type of intel about. You do have to open it up a little bit, do you not? You have to make maybe a couple of phone calls, whether it's players, whether it's general managers, or people you just know in the game?
Yes, and I make a lot of calls, ask a lot of people. I'll ask anybody for opinion. I'll ask the janitor, the clubhouse guy, the attendant, anybody who's been around someone. And really, maybe someone that's not as high up is probably the person that you really find out about someone's character and so on. So we spend a lot of time going through that. We dig a lot. Just because you dig on someone and you're doing the work, that doesn't really mean that you're going to be going after them or pursuing them and so on. So we do it on a lot of players. You go to players, teammates, and so on. You're trying to dig and get information all the time about all kinds of players. So it's an important part of it. It's an important part of the evaluation, but it's a real thing. And I think the biggest thing for me is, as a teammate, how do you affect other players? If you don't really have an impact, you don't bring anybody down. You may not be additive, but you really don't bring anybody down. It's more pass-fail than you pass. If you're additive, then we might pay a premium to have someone like that around because we think you can improve other guys around you.
Alex Anthopoulos, President, GM of the Braves, with us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Obviously, Freddie Freeman is one of the guys that you just talked about. He adds so much. With this deal backloaded that you signed Marcell Ozuna to, does it increase the odds at all of a Freddie Freeman deal being done prior to the start of the season?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I know it's going to be a topic. It's been a topic since I've been here. I mean, I think the best way for me to put it, same thing, right? I mean, stating the obvious, Freddie's been really clear that he wants to stay a Brave the remainder of his career. We've been clear we want him to stay here. Obviously we said the same thing about Marcell, but I couldn't pin down for you when that deal was going to get done. So it got done February 4th or 5th or whatever the date was. So in terms of Freddie, we want him here. He wants to be here. When that deal will get done, obviously, all those things. He wants to get it done. We want to get it done. Those are great starting points. But in terms of timing, we're not going to ever talk about when we are ever engaged with any players on contract extensions and so on. So all I'll probably continue to maintain as I get asked is that we both want it to get done, and hopefully the first you hear about it is that we have a deal done.
Yeah, I figured I'd give it a shot.
Sure.
Well, eventually you're going to have to come out of this whole mode of yours where I don't tell you people anything I don't want to tell you people. Can I ask, boy, this is dangerous now. Do you believe there's a contract out there? And even after what we just talked about, value to my team compared to if the guy was a free agent. I get all that stuff. But is there a shell of a contract out there that you believe sort of helps as a starting point for a Freddie extension?
Oh, you're always, no matter who the player is, you will always look at comps, right? You will always look at, you need something to frame these things, right? So you have to start somewhere. I mean, you could, and from a personal standpoint, I'd rather point to something, not just come out of a number out of, I feel like so-and-so's worth X, or I like pointing to comps and working our way around that. I also think, I've never had a player tell me this, but maybe it's just my instincts, I think players do it as well. So I think it's only normal, right? They follow what's going on. They compare themselves. I'm as good as so-and-so. I'm better than so-and-so. And that's part of it as well, right? They're not going to maybe get into the weeds, salary arbitration and things like that. But when it comes to free agency, you look at the market each year and you look at who's signed, who you compare yourself to. I mean, all these players, they know each other. They're fans of the game. They know who they respect and who they think is good and isn't. So I'd say comparables are used almost every time in some capacity in negotiations. So who do I believe are comparables for any one of our players? I wouldn't say. but I can guarantee you that in any negotiation, comparables will be used.
All right. There were 2 moments. I was on that Zoom the other day where I've never seen a player or heard a player talk about the deal he wasn't necessarily so thrilled with that he told his agent to call a specific team, see Tampa and see the Atlanta Braves. And then when Marcell turned it on you, asking what the hell you've been doing for the last few months when this could have been done just in a day, that was different. If nothing else, I enjoyed the fact that in the middle of February, the beginning of February, something about the baseball world showed me something I had never seen before.
No, and that's who he is. He's very real. He's very honest, very sincere. Look, over the course of a season as a GM, things come up, right? Whether it might be something and you need to talk to a player, not that it's anything terrible or bad, but there might be something that you notice, or you need someone to help out with this or that or whatever. Or maybe, especially with COVID protocols and so on, we may have noticed some things, guys not wearing his mask or, whatever it might be. And there's times I might have to get involved and sit a player down and talk to him, but whatever it might be. And anytime I needed to talk to Marcell, and this happens over the course of years, and you're talking to players all the time, a lot of guys, if you have to talk to them about anything that might be a concern or a question, they immediately get defensive and make excuses. Oh, it wasn't like that. Well, this is this and that. This guy, no excuses, totally accountable. If you said, hey, you weren't wearing your mask, for example, yep, you're right, got to do it, I'm going to clean it up. No excuses, I can't breathe in it, or I forgot it at home, or my dog ate my homework. And that's from a baseball standpoint, a clubhouse standpoint, and so on. We had him address the team at one point, especially the Latin players, to help us out on some of the COVID protocols, or in terms of him sliding the DH or being pulled deep defensively late in the game. Never complained. This guy was on a 1-year deal. He had he decided obviously to bet on himself. Was never worried about his own performance or his stats. It was all about team and winning. And you can talk the talk, but he actually lived it by example. And when you talk to him, he's real. There's no BS with him. And what was nice is that the media got a chance to see it on that call.
Alex Anthopoulos, President, GM of the Braves, on with us for a couple of more minutes. You talked about being a fan of the game, keeping an eye on everything else, and it's part of your job as well to keep an eye on especially the National League East. This is going to be one challenging year, as Chris says all of the time. Everybody else is trying to get better as well, and it seems like just about everybody in this division did exactly that.
No doubt. I say this every year. NL East worries me. It's a really good division. The 2 playoff clubs out of the division, us and Miami. Obviously, we were good clubs last year, and then you look at what the Phillies have done, what New York has done, what the Nats have done. They all got better. So every team is gunning for the playoffs, and there's not too many, too many of those where you could say the whole division, top to bottom, is all expecting and battling for the playoffs. You always have a team or two that, hey, we're just trying to be a little better or grow, or we're rebuilding. We've got 5 clubs that are just top to bottom, are trying to win the division, expect to make the playoffs. It's going to be a grind, and it always is, and I always worry about it, and I stress, and to Snit's credit and the players' credit and the staff's credit, they've won the East the last 3 years in a row that obviously Atlanta hadn't done since the 14 in a row. And we'd love to be able to do it again and have 4 in a row, but it's going to be a challenge.
I want to ask you about your newest old employee in a second. We had him on last week, but a couple of quick things. Soroka, I know it's just a timeline. It's just sort of it's kind of a guess. What would you say publicly for Mike Soroka right now, the best of the information you've gotten?
Yeah, so we internally have an idea when we think, and we knew that the day he got hurt. Because I asked the question, right? Hey, when do you guys think he's going to be back? The reason we never come out and say it to the media, because then it becomes a story, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say we arbitrarily pick a date, and for whatever reason, guy needs another week or 2, whatever. All of a sudden, it's a setback, it's this, it's that. It becomes a distraction to the player and so on. So I think our thought is to take as much time as we need and give him time to make sure that Achilles is strong and he's safe. We're not going to rule anything out, though, and that's why you don't want to really get boxed in. His arm feels good. He's throwing bullpens. He's going to be doing that in spring training. Like any player, I expect him to want to push and be back as soon as he can. But Mike's smart, and he knows he's got a long career ahead of him as well. So we'll get together at some point. And I think as we get into March, he's going to continue to throw. We'll start having a better idea. We'll talk to the doctors and so on. And at some point, as we start getting close, we'll have a timeline that we'll be able to give everybody. So I would expect at some point in March we'll be able to say, look, we're expecting him opening day, or expecting him the middle of April or late April or sometime in May. et cetera, et cetera. So, but to do that early, right when he got hurt, when we're so far off, you just don't know what's going to come. But he's doing really, really well.
Are you good if this is the bullpen on April 1st, what you have signed?
I mean, look, you always want to get better. So we're prepared to go into the season with the club we have right now. I think Ozuna and that big right-handed bat was the most important piece. But we absolutely still have room to improve, whether that's bullpen, bench. We have a lot of inexperience behind Darno right now, with Flowers being a free agent, with Alex Jackson and Contreras, our two internal options right now. So, if, like last year, there's the end of spring training, we find out that all of a sudden DH is in play, expanded playoffs. Do we have someone and we slide Ozuna to DH? Who's playing the outfield then? Who takes that spot? So you never have enough. You always worry. I wish we had more depth. You always do, whether that's trade deadline or going into the playoffs. So we still got a little bit of room to work with. That was why we backloaded a bit of Marcell's deal. And we're going to see if we can get some things done here before camp opens or even during camp.
So there's still an opportunity. Good. So that asked and answered. Last one, Chipper Jones. He said he had, I think it was lunch with you a few weeks back. How much do you respect Kevin Seitzer for understanding what this role is and having all parties be mature enough to know that the betterment of the ball club is really what this is about more than anything else?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. Look, one, me and Snit feel like he can help, no doubt about it, right? If he wants to spend time with hitters and help hitters, you have a guy like that who can help. There's plenty of great players, great hitters, great outfielders. They don't teach well. He can teach well. So it's not just his playing career. He's good at this. He's done it before. Obviously, small amounts, whether it's in the minor leagues or spring training, but he never really did it full time. But he's had success. He's very good at it. So, yes, it helps that he's a Hall of Famer and a great hitter, but he's good at what he does. This is something he's obviously extremely knowledgeable about, extremely passionate about, and he's going to have results. So the minute he asked me to go to lunch, we started talking, and he said he was, open to doing this and willing to do it. And he really had the time, because I think, the main thing with him is he has so many things going on in his life, is did he have time to do something like this? And anything we can get out of him is a plus. So from there, I said, obviously I mentioned to him that I'm going to talk to Snit. It's his staff down there. Snit was 100% on board, and then Snit talked to Seitz. Seitz obviously was 100% on board. There's just good relationships there across the board. And I think we realized we have four guys that, all the position players can go to. I've never seen one hitting coach connect with every single position player. It just does not happen. Just certain guys connect with certain guys. And to have four options now for all of our players, it's going to be a really strong group.
Well, Alex, congratulations on getting the Ozuna deal done, and we appreciate you joining us, and we'll talk soon.
All right, guys. Glad to do it.